When you are showing up to your life, no matter what is going on, grace and mercy and favor is going to meet you there.
Number one thing, you cannot find me a successful person, any version of success, however we want to measure it, that gave up on what it is that they were doing.
When you don't deal with your shadow, when you don't see why you do what you do, if you don't see why you keep looping in your work and not getting out of a certain place, the Dove was talking about feeling stuck. We feel shameful because there's something innate and that knows that there's something better in us to get to that place. There's a higher knowing. There's a wiser knowing. We know.
You are not limited by anything. I'm going to say that again. You are not limited by your past. You are not limited by your small or big T trauma. You are not limited by your environment. You are only limited by this. And that can feel overwhelming initially, but when you realize that it's actually empowering, you know that you start to be able to come into choice.
Welcome. We're so glad to have you guys here. And I am super honored to introduce Nicole and Dove. We have been friends for probably 7 or 8 years at this point. I would for sure say that Nicole and Dove are a power couple. They've been working together for many years. They are a twin flame revolution. It just goes so deep. Like I can't even scratch the surface. So I'm going to let them share more about themselves because I want them to tell you from their heart everything about them.
Hello. And
hello.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this beautiful introduction. Yeah, we're so excited to be here with you guys talking about self-expression. I'm Dove.
I'm Nicole.
And we're a couple that have been working together. We've been together. We just realized we've been together for 15 years this September.
We made it.
And it's such a beautiful journey because relationships bring out the sort of same reflections in you that entrepreneurship does, right? So whether you are in a relationship or just an entrepreneur or both, what all of this is asking you to do is take a nice deep look at yourself, figure out who the heck you really are, and know that the magic of that is coming from that space. We are consciousness mentors. What does that even mean? We help you to get into the consciousness, right? So imagine the universe that you want to get into where all the stuff you want is accessible to you. And that really happens through helping you tap into what we call divine intelligence, something you have access to all the time, something you just forgot to access. And the side effect of being connected to that divine intelligence and to your real self-expression, we call it your essence, is all the things that you could hope to want, right? It is your financial wellness. It is your physical wellness. It is your mental wellness. It is your relational wellness. And you can really achieve anything that you want.
I also wanted to add that we're spiritual teachers. And I want to bring this piece in because it's really important. Because when I met my wife, I was down and out in my life and addiction had a hold of me and the toxicity that was dwelling within me and not understanding who I am as a soul, right? That we had to have a spiritual experience to live through the experience that we went through. And we tapped into a power within ourselves during that process that started to awaken so much within us. And then jumping into a business together, married, we needed, I was like, Jesus, help me. We needed to really tap into something because I didn't have the tools. We didn't have the tools to do that. But with that being said, because our why was so big and the mission was so big, we were able to find what was necessary to not only stay together, and we were separated for a year actually during our process, but to have this business that's so freaking successful because we've learned how to step out of the way and plug into the most divine version of ourselves and be able to express that version. Because first of all, that version in me is sexy. That version has magnets in it. That version attracts. We have not paid for any kind of ads in our business. Everything has been organic because being your full divine self attracts like people that need what you have to say. And what you have to say is really freaking important. What we've had to say is really important. I have seen people transform their lives. I have transformed my life. And there is nothing like that. You guys are in service-based, heart-centered, a lot of you connecting with people, serving at deep levels, hustling your ass off.
Yeah.
But we're gonna bring it back to you today.
Yeah. And making that shift in there, how can you, as Nicole said, be these sexy magnets for the things that you want? And yes, of course, we're going to put in some hustle here and there. All of us are in our businesses. But when you're really tapped in, turned on, tuned in to all of the stuff that's going on in here, and you are remembering to be connected to that divine intelligence and that self, the thing is, you get recharged, you get reinvigorated, you get remotivated, you get re-inspired. This could not be a more exciting topic for us because it's the cornerstone to our work, and it's the cornerstone of our business. About a year and a half after we started our business, I used to be an attorney. Nicole owned a wellness and fitness company in New York City, and we dropped everything to come and to serve. And we did it by understanding who we are, getting really connected to that, who we are, and then finding how we can serve through that in our inspiration. And from that point, we have grown organically and built this 7-figure business. And that's not where we came from. Nicole said she struggled with addiction and toxicity, and we had all sorts of things. I am just about to move into this gorgeous home that we've built for ourselves. Everybody said, oh, it's such a beautiful house. And they just assumed it was given to me in some manner or another. And I said, hey, when I was 16 years old, I lived in my car.
Yes.
And when I started this business, we didn't have $1. And we were terrified. So I just want to say to you, like, wherever you are in your journey, whether you have created an empire and you are just, what's the next step? Or I am losing my footing, or I am bored, or I am not inspired, or I am starting out and I don't know how the heck to do this. You can do it. It is not overstated to say that when we are not in our self-expression, we experience lack, separation, limitation, loneliness, and worse. We have experienced losing people in our lives, people not being able to live on this planet anymore because they could not be who they are authentically. So we take this really seriously, and it's the key to everything in your life. Think about the things that you want in your life right now as side effects to being able to be really deeply rooted and connected with that expression. We had this powerful why, our love for each other, our desire to help other people, and the desire to come out of these things that we grew up with, to come out of the dysfunction that we grew up with, and not being limited. So much of why we are here is to let you know that you are not limited by anything. I'm going to say that again. You are not limited by your past. You are not limited by your small or big T trauma. You are not limited by your environment. You are only limited by this. And that can feel overwhelming initially, but when you realize that it's actually empowering, you know that you start to be able to come into choice. And we are the examples for ourselves, right? It's like we created and moved through those things. We know that all of you can and can do what you want.
Thank you. This woman activates the shit out of me. I just love that. She's like one of the best coaches I've ever had. I'm sitting there, my heart's pounding. I'm like, damn, girl. She goes into that feeling. I really sit with what she says, and I can feel it to every, so yes, my greatest example of the power of why happened over a year and a half ago. Dove and I created an event. It was a virtual event. There was probably about 100 people that were watching. I remember the night that we went there. Oh my God, we had so much interference. Nothing was working. It was just like really heavy energy. We were like, what's going on? And we were just like in it. We were like, we're going to do this. We show up, we go back home. It's a 3-day event. And 2 a.m., we get a phone call that Dove's mom had died for 50 minutes. They were compressing her, that she was now in surgery. And that was the information that we had. And we were rocked. We were rocked. So Dove and I are very intuitive and very connected to Dove's mom. And just, I was sitting with her energy. Like, what do I do? Do I cancel the event? Do we come down there now? And I just felt her energy go like, you won't finish the event. And then you're gonna come. And so I didn't know why at the time. I didn't have the information yet, but I listened to it. We sounded really insensitive and crazy, but we just followed. We didn't sleep a wink. We're on the way, and we find out she's out of surgery. She's unresponsive. And we get to the event, and we're like, all right, where do we start? We had to switch around everything because we decided to talk about shadow and grief that day because we wanted to pull all of the people that were watching into prayer for her mother. And it was heavy, and people were crying, and we were a mess. And we were just like screaming and going through all this stuff. And as we're praying for this woman, we get a phone call that she's moving and that she's trying to pull her tubes out. And like the power, Dove and I used to sit and be like, all right, this is what we're going to do with our money. We're going to take care of your family. We're going to take care of my family. We're going to make sure everybody's good. And then we're going to serve all these people. And this is that moment to serve this woman who served me so greatly. And she's fighting for her life. And we're realizing that we need to create some wealth right now to take care of her. Insurance wasn't covering everything. And we knew that something needed to shift within us. And so we had a package that we had created that we didn't have the fervency to push. And it was over 7 figures, the package, right? But now it was time. It was time to put that out there. And when I tell you, that thing was so divinely orchestrated that the first person, Dove, saw exactly who she was going to ask. It was done. And it was like, boom, it came back right away. And the point of this is that when your why is big, when your why involves serving others, when your why involves giving freely to others, not just in your business, spirit shows up and shows up big and blows your mind. When we start to see these things, they change us. And what was interesting was right before that happened, we had lost people. Like people had died. I lost my puppy. We were going through emotional things. And when we're going through those things, spirit shows up in a way to grace you when you are showing up. I'm going to say that again. When you are showing up to your life, no matter what is going on, grace and mercy and favor is going to meet you there. And it met my ass and it changed me. It changed me. It changed up. And guess what was even cooler? Everyone at that event got to participate when I got back on stage and said, she's moving. And people changed as well. Your breakthroughs, your abundance, your wealth, all of it, people are watching you. It is changing your family, it's changing your friends. We're going to get into self-expression and we're going to get into the 5 keys to knowing thyself, because if you know yourself, you are going to be able to express yourself in a way that's going to give you everything you want to have in your life.
Amen. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. We wanted to share that because it really is important to understand like why we're here with you guys, why it matters so much for us, and how business is so personal and how it is so spiritual and how it is all these things. These are not all separated out. So it all comes back to this core, which is you and how you're engaging with your reality and your self-expression. And the first thing that we want to talk about is fall in love with your purpose and believe in it. Whatever you're doing, you might need to fall back in love with it, or it might need to shift in some manner or way, because you can't separate yourself from your business. That doesn't work. There isn't a big space there. It's not like you're selling plates door to door. You know, you're showing up, you are where your belief systems are, where your energy is, what you believe in it. Like you are the hub of it all. And so you want to infuse it with yourself. And that means getting reconnected to what are your values? What matters to you? What are you excited about? What are you excited about sharing? What are you excited about teaching? It's really important to come back to that place and get excited about what you're doing. When we're connecting people with our work, it is never about a sale. It is about, do I know that this is the juiciest container that I could take all of my gifts and put into, and then find a person that I know is ready and is going to benefit, and I am going to change. I have told people no. They say, I want your biggest package. No, this is not going to serve you in the highest way. Or no, this is not the fit. No, because I'm so excited about what we offer. I'm so excited about what I do, but I'm also looking for that integrity. My value is integrity, right? What makes me excited is that I believe in what I do, and I know that I'm going to share it in the right place. I know that it's going to be provided. I know we're going to be connected. I know that it is going to be right? Getting into falling in love with it, coming back to it, being the biggest fan of your work, reconnecting to it. Is there something you want to say on that point?
Spirit's about to call some of y'all out.
Okay.
I love when I go off like, the notes, because spirit's like whispering at me. He's like, you gotta say this, you gotta say this. So for some of you, you're tired. You're not resting. You're not taking care of yourself. And that love, that passion is dulled because you're exhausted. And so I'm going to say this gently. Your cup's going to have to be a little bit more full. You're going to have to take a little bit more time for yourself. You're going to have to slow down a little bit in certain areas, because I promise you, when you do that, when I talked about that magnet, if you're not feeling that sexy energy, if you're not feeling hyped, if you're not in love with what you're doing because you're too under-resourced, it's going to be harder to magnetize. That time that you could be taking a rest is going to amplify that magnet back to you quicker. In the beginning of the business, like, we went hard because we wanted it to succeed. And then I've learned that rest has to be there. The nervous system has to slow down. That's when healing happens, right? You get to do that. You get to say that you're running your own business and you know who you are. And it's okay. Even if it's just a little bit more breaks, little bit more time, little bit more self-care, even if it's an hour you take for yourself and you hide from your kids, go hide in the bathroom. I know they get into the bathroom with their little fingers and like trying to, and the dog sniffing, but maybe you need to leave the house. You need to take better care of yourself right now, because some of you are in beautiful pivotal positions, up leveling, you want to scale, your system needs to be there with it.
That's 100% true, right? How many people have just had a really bad night's sleep and you wake up the next day, or like you're up all night and you look around, you're like, wow, life sucks. Everybody sucks. I hate everything. That's not how you feel. That's not how you feel. You're under-resourced. That's an example of fatigue, under-resourced, right? And sometimes it is deeper than having more sleep and a little bit more downtime. Understand that if you think, oh my God, I've lost all of my passion, I've lost all my drive to do this stuff. Yes, sometimes we got to pivot a little. Sometimes you got to readjust what you're doing. I always tell people, like, you do have to revisit your business model at least periodically, because you're growing. Hopefully you're evolving, right? We're here on this planet to evolve, period. If you stopped evolving, you're going to feel listless. You're going to feel not motivated. You're going to feel like crap. And maybe some of you have stopped, right? But if you're here, likely you have not stopped evolving, because you're here to do that. Knowing yourself is the key to all of this, as we're talking about, and being in that self-expression. But self-expression is a whole, it's not a part. And so the second point we want to talk to you guys about is shadow. And for those of you guys that don't know what your shadow is the parts of you that you have deemed to be unacceptable. Your shadow is the parts of you that you have deemed to be unlovable, unacceptable, embarrassing, not whatever your standard is, and you've put them aside and you've decided, no, that's not okay. The problem with that is that when we do not know our shadow because we are rejecting a part of ourselves, we can't fully know ourselves. And if we can't fully know ourselves, we cannot fully master ourselves. If we cannot fully master ourselves, you cannot get to the places that you want to get. You cannot have that next level in your income. You cannot have that next level in your love life. You cannot without that knowing of the self. And so that means turning and facing to that stuff that you're like, oh my God, I could never look back. I could never admit this about me. But what is also hiding in those shadows is dreams, goals, skills, and gifts. And you might say, Dove, why would I hide that in my shadows? I wanted to be an attorney since I was 5 years old. I left being an attorney only because I realized I could have a larger impact, and that I was born to be an entrepreneur, and I was born to help all of you guys in this way. My favorite part of being an attorney was helping people to expand their life in a better way. And when I was about 19 years old, I was in a relationship, and my partner said to me, I could never be with an attorney. That makes me uncomfortable. And I grew up with a lot of poverty, food scarcity. The environment that I was around, like, that wasn't really acceptable. And so I was at a crossroads in that moment where I could take those gifts, my intelligence, my motivation, my desire, my drive, and I could go shove it in a corner to make other people feel comfortable. I could make it my shadow, because a lot of people, they hide those things because they make other people uncomfortable. But I decided not to do that. So that's an example, right? What is hiding in there? So we need to know what's in there. You need to know what's in there. Because if you don't know what's in there, then you have an invisible driver in your life.
Yes.
Because it isn't going to go away. It's there, but it's driving you from your unconscious and you don't know it. And then you say, why did I blow that sale? Why did I blow that opportunity? Why didn't I take that speaking gig? Why am I stuck? Why do I keep fighting with my partner? Because that driver is there and you're not aware of those parts of you that have it in control. You can't say, oh, I see you, but no, thank you. You're not driving today. And so we need to turn and look what is in the trunk, right? What is in that shadow? So that it isn't getting in the way of, oh my God, I know my values. I know my abilities. I'm so excited. Like, I want to be in my self-expression.
Oh, I just want to share one thing about the shadow. We start to identify with our shadow. It's not really you.
Right.
It's not really me, my shadow, right? Shadow are responses to our impacts. We learn things from our parents. We get programmed. We do things to survive or to cope at the time that it's happening. And usually our coping skills as children is not that great. And then we take it on as adults and we do these things and we think we're just passive aggressive, or we're just sarcastic, or we're just a perfectionist. Or I used to believe I'm just an addict. I like drugs. And like when I realized that was a symptom of me trying to numb all the trauma that I had gone through. And then I got off the drugs and I realized I was a perfectionist because I just wanted to be loved. And then I realized, oh, the reason why I was getting really aggressive is because I was defensive, because I didn't want you to hurt me. That's not me. If you think about a shadow, it's like when the light hits you and it casts, you could see it, but it's not you. It's just a shadow. And when you start to understand and own that shit,
Yes.
like I've had to own stuff that was really hard to own. But here's the thing. If we don't own it, we carry pockets full of shame. I love energy. I love learning about frequency. Emotions have vibration. And the lowest vibration you don't want in your life is shame. Now, when you don't deal with your shadow, when you don't see why you do what you do, if you don't see why you keep looping in your work and not getting out of a certain place, that Dove was talking about feeling stuck, we feel shameful because there's something innate and that knows that there's something better in us to get to that place. There's a higher knowing. There's a wiser knowing. We know. And so what we do is we go to shame, and shame separates us from other people. Shame causes us to attract things in our life that we do not want. Shame brings on depression and anxiety and all kinds of sickness in the body. Okay, actually, just take a deep breath, actually.
Yeah.
I know who I'm expressing now. I know when I'm expressing a distortion. I know when I'm expressing the highest divine version of Nicole. And when I express my shadow, or if I pop off a little bit, I'm able to completely clean that up and then course correct and keep going. And that's knowing that shadow, really getting that.
And this moves us into the third point, which is non-suppression. We are a highly suppressed society. Some of you guys might be different parts of the world, Western culture more than others, highly emotionally suppressed. We think that grieving only happens when somebody passes away. We think that if somebody is crying, we should tell them it's okay and stop them. The thing about suppression is that we can't suppress in just one area. This is not choose your flavor. When you suppress across the board,
yes,
can you start to figure out what you're feeling? And can you start to let it out? Because we're talking about self-expression. We're talking about magnetism. We're talking about being excited about what you're doing. We're talking about getting yourself resourced if you need to get resourced. We're talking about being able to look at your shadow. Great. But if you're suppressing and you're flatlining all your areas, and then you go, oh my God, I must just not love what I do anymore. When you suppress your anger, your fear, your sadness, your grief, whatever else is going on, some of you might be suppressing your joy. Again, maybe you want to fit in. You're having a hard time understanding. Maybe you're suppressing your bigness. Wow, I just told Nicole the other day, I cannot hate more the saying like, yours too much. People are too much. I'm going to tell you right now, if you are trying to run an empire or a business or whatever, do you realize like how much is required of you? When you look at a celebrity and they can fill up all of this space, you look at a performer. When I work with celebrities or performers or actors, I remind them like, do you realize like how much is needed for you to fill up those spaces? You've got to be a lot. Okay. You've got to be a lot. And you've got to be a lot of yourself. So I just wanted to say that for some of you guys. I heard that since I was, since the first friend I had, because I was big and I was energized and I knew who I was when I was a little kid. And I forgot who I was because society was uncomfortable with it. And then I had to relearn. When you start to suppress those things down, you won't have that same inspiration and motivation. And people will come to us and say, I'm uninspired. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing anymore. And a lot of times it's just that. So feel it, feel it. Find a quiet place, scream in your car. Even if you don't know what you're screaming about, hit a pillow on your bed, start to have an emotion, dare to feel something you don't want to feel. People say to me, why would I ever want to make myself feel bad? Because it's already in there. You're not trying to make yourself feel bad. You're trying to free yourself to feel everything else. And the only way to do that is by feeling the stuff that's already in there. Nobody's making you relive anything. You're feeling what's already there. It's not a cold. You don't get over it. You don't get over your traumas. You don't get over your hurts. You have to move through it. You don't get over your feelings. You got to feel them. And it sounds simple, but the thing is we don't practice it. See, we're in a society now where we are information consumers. You guys might have all the information in the world, but the thing is that we don't live it. We don't practice it. So there can be principles that philosophers have been talking about, mystics have been talking about, religious leaders have been talking about, prophets have been talking, whatever it is, for centuries. And yet we don't take that little piece and go, I'm going to live it. Because the distinction is you take information and live it. You got to live it. You got to move in it. So remember, suppression, it's not selective. It's across the board. So every time you take it down a notch, take it down a notch, you're all the way down here. And what you're here saying is like, hey, Deb and Nicole, I want to be expressed. I want to feel big feelings. Like I want to feel big happiness. I want to feel big wealth. I want to feel big love. But in order to do that, we've really got to feel all of it. And that could be scary, right? We're talking about big stuff. Don't put pressure on yourself and expect yourself to turn it all around like this. We're talking about these massive pillars.
And I just want to put one thing into perspective for y'all. Being an entrepreneur, I have to tell you, I've had so many deaths and rebirths.
Yeah.
So many versions of me had to die. Those versions couldn't hold 7 figures. There was versions of me that couldn't hold my marriage that had to die. I had to have a rebirth. And for death and rebirth, we grieve. Mm-hmm. When a mother gives birth, she's in pain. Like she's hurting. When someone dies, you're in pain. We have to grieve. When I was in rehab, I was grieving my addiction. I cried every day. I learned how to weep. I learned how to weep so hard because I could feel the difference in my body when I choked up and there was no space for anything else. The cup had to be dumped. All this energy, all this pain, all this grossness we go through as humans constantly. We're going through so much painful events. We don't allow ourselves to move this energy so that there's space for something else to enter. Yeah. And our bodies are so cool. Like sometimes we think we can't stop crying, but like it just shuts off when it's ready to shut off. And you can feel the difference in the nervous system. Everything calibrates. I'm sure that all these beautiful hormones are like popping off in our brain to allow for us to balance ourselves. Let yourself feel, baby. It's time to feel a little bit more deeply. I have my clients go scream in closets, scream in pillows, scream in the woods. Like, I love when people tell me they're not angry. They're never angry. I'm like, you're probably so angry. I was like, we get you going. It's not gonna stop. It's in there.
It's about making space. I love what Nicole said. Make space for the stuff you want. If you want the yummy to increase in your life, you got to make space. That means you got to face it. You got to let it out. You got to create room. Right? My secret love and passion is design and clothes. And I used to personal style and something that I think is actually really connected to our self-expression and who we are. Right. And so if I said to you, okay, let's go together, we're going to spend the weekend, we're going to completely style you. We're going to find all of the best ways to express yourself fully through your look and you're going to feel amazing. What are you going to do if you come home and your closet's full of shit that you don't fit in anymore and you hate? You got to clean it out. Hey, you can't bring that new, beautiful energy into a space that there's no space for it. Can you imagine just throwing all that beautiful clothes on the floor because you've got pants that don't fit you from 20 years ago hanging up in your closet? Think about that analogy. Think about that visual because we need to move stuff out to move what you want in. And I want to remind you guys, like your self-expression, let's talk about the power of it, the power of your thought and your word.
Yes.
I know the power of the thought and the word. And then I realized it is even deeper than I think. It is so deep. Don't ever shy away from studying yourself and how powerful your thought and your word is. We need to get precise about what we want. And we need to start looking at, wow, there is a lot of stuff that I am saying and thinking that is really inconsistent with what it is that I want. Because we can look around and go, wow, I just suck, or I'm just not able to accomplish what this other person is, because we feel stuck and we don't realize that our belief system and our word is inconsistent with the thing that we want. And you've got to believe it. You've got to believe what you say. So you got to do that work to go, I would rather believe this. People come to me and they're so much more comfortable. How many of you guys are so much more comfortable worrying than being in like positive fantasy? I used to be really more comfortable with that. The thing is that there is no evidence, and you can't give me a single argument that says that your doom vision is any more plausible than the most amazing, clear, focused desire that you have. We're just more comfortable. But if you look around, we're also more stuck. People who are creating the things that you want to create, they're not letting themselves be ruled by the belief systems that are inconsistent with the things that they want to do. They're using something to motivate them past their fear, and they're making decisions. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to be aware. You've got to bring your awareness and say, wow, maybe I'm not clear. So then get clear. And if it's not clear about an action, get clear about a feeling. I want to feel peace. I want to feel comfort. I need $500,000 to expand my business. Get really clear and then look at like, where am I pushing against that? And practice getting consistent, because it brings us into our last point, which is living what you want right now. Think about something you want right now. Think about a next step, a goal. Who's the person standing there? Are they you right now? The answer is no, because if it was, you would have it in this moment. So what's the bridge gap between that? What do you need to cross over? What do you need to embody? What do you need to believe? What do you need to go into to be the person that's standing in that spot? For some of you, it's just a small adjustment and you're right there. For some of you guys, it might feel like, okay, I got to grow into this other person. Nicole said earlier, I wasn't the person that could X, Y, Z. I wasn't the person that could. That's why things happen in time. But it links up really tightly with that getting clear and being in the belief of that. Because then you already realize, okay, if I'm going to believe that, then put your money where your mouth is. Action it. If you believe I am wealthy, I'm healthy, I'm happy, you're rich and you're going to get that bag, right? So if you're in that energy, you're going to be in that, then live it. Then live it, right? I'm not saying go do the wildest things in the whole world, although I'll tell you that we've done some wild things to continue to anchor the reality of the next level of what we're going to live, because we have that much faith. But I'm not going to ask you to do the wildest things, but buy that bag. Buy the bag that's going to hold that money. Put the dress on that's going to be on that date. Clean your house so that somebody can be in that space with you. Prepare yourself for that interview. You have a new package you're excited about sharing with the world. Do you have everything sorted out? Do you have your contract already written for it? Do you have your description for it? Every detail. Be prepared. Live in it. Celebrate it. Go have that dinner with your friends and live in the energy that it is there for you right now. Because the way that you express, the frequency that you express is what you're also receiving back. And the thing is, the thing that you want 9 3/4 out of 10 times is a feeling. And almost always you have access to that feeling already.
Ooh, I want to give you an example of like really living, like even when it's not there. I wanted to be, when I was a child, a rapper. Part of my music is to help people heal. At the time was creating on GarageBand, these healing type of music, rap, and I was just uploading them to iTunes and they sounded pretty bad, the quality, but I did it anyways. Because my goal was to be on other people's albums, famous artists, and just have little bits in their song. And about 3 years ago, a famous artist messaged me and just said, "You're amazing." I just was like, I'm going to reach out. I was like, I'm going to slide into them DMs and I'm going, this was like one of my favorite artists. And we started talking and she's like, when's your album coming out? And I was like, my album? I'm waiting for your new album. And she's just like, I really want to be on your album. And then what ended up happening was she was like, I want you to be on my album. And so I'm 44 years old. Okay. This has been a dream since I was a kid. Last year, I made it on not only her third album, but I made it on an album that is her most divine version of herself that I listened to for the last 3 years until she loaded this thing up. And it was one of those moments. It took me 44 years. And so don't stop. Don't quit. Be in it. Take risks. Be yourself. Be authentic. Do things that are just like, I do crazy shit sometimes. Sometimes Doug doesn't trust me. Where she's like, "Are you pulling on my coat?" She's like, "Nick, you gotta go pull you back, girl." And then sometimes it'll just be like a huge breakthrough. She's like, okay. There's been moments though where she had to anchor me in and just be like, you need to stop. Because my shadow was coming out probably. But when we talked about everything that we talked about, what this gives us is the most authentic version of ourselves. And that's what we want to share with the world. That intimacy, right? That's that sexy magnet. When you can connect and stand. See, when we don't take these steps and we don't face the shadow, we're always looking over our shoulder as someone's going to figure us out. That fraud syndrome. Because like you think something's wrong with you because you believe something's wrong with you and there's nothing wrong with you. There's just some things going on that you went through, that you learned, that you picked up. That's not really you. Yeah. And when you start to do this, you can fully be yourself. And we are at our highest vibration energetically. And we're so connected to all things. So like, no matter what you believe in spirituality, or if you're religious, whatever that is, spirit dwells in each and every one of us. You're going to see the divinity in me and I'm going to see it in you. So we choose to see it. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. And when we allow ourselves to be really vulnerable and we allow ourselves to, we connect so deeply and everything becomes so yummy. And in that, we become very masterful in our creation. And we do create exactly what we're going to create. And that why fuels it. That why will always fuel it. And then your wealth, your health, your connections, it's the demonstration of source love, y'all. It is that demonstration, and it gives proof that there's something better in the world that we see right now, where I hear so many people like not wanting to be here and they hate it here and they think it's Armageddon and all those things, and could be, but the way I perceive reality, it's always going to be beautiful no matter what's going on outside of myself, because internally I've created, like I like to call it, the kingdom of heaven within Nick, where I get to experience so much love and receive love. And where I came from, I was a junkie and I was on the streets and I didn't love myself. And I really love myself, and loving myself, I'm able to love y'all really deeply. So I really wanted to share that with you guys.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, and I appreciate that. I think all of us at our core, we just want to be seen and heard and loved. And I think that it all comes down to that foundationally, and all the things we talked about. The side effect, good relationships, money, thriving business, great. I want you guys all to have that. Like a big part of our work is to help people into abundance, people that care, because I think we should have abundance. I think it's your birthright. I think we're not limited, not like we think. The more you anchor these components in, the more you're in connection. You're away from that separation we're talking about. And the more you feel, you start to cultivate that feeling of really feeling seen and loved, and the connections are deeper and they just feel really good, even if you can't put words to it, and your peace changes. We went big today. We shared a lot of stuff with you guys that we only talk about privately with our clients, and we wanted to give it all. We didn't leave anything off the table. It's with our full hearts that we shared with you guys. And yeah, if there's questions, we'd love to hear them, but just thank you for receiving us, and maybe give this a listen a couple times, because my instinct is that you'll hear it different each time. There's a lot in here. And journal, listen to it, journal, listen again, and let your subconscious start to talk to you. You have more of the answers than you think you do. And I believe deeply that we need people to help us see stuff as well. We're meant to do it through that, but know that there's a lot in there for you to access. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening and engaging.
I am so blown away. I'm sure that everyone is blown away right now. Thank you so much. Like, you guys just spoke into the depths depths of our souls, and we appreciate it. Justine had a couple questions over here. So her question is, how do you handle shadow work when it completely consumes your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a great book. It's called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. It's a great
Debbie Ford.
Great recommendation for self-guided shadow practices.
And she really hits home. When I was reading, I got really triggered at times, but it's really about owning it with no judgment and shame and understanding why it's there. Our shadow has gotten us here. Those coping skills that don't work anymore, they got you here. Like, I've had to honor them, like really love on them and thank them for getting me here and being like, hey, I know there's another way. So that's the first part. And that book is really helpful. The second part is, so in my addiction, I've had to have a relationship with a loving God. So this is not religious in any way, non-denominational, but the burdens that we carry, they're so heavy that I cannot carry them alone. So whatever your belief is, whether you believe in Mother Earth and you want to cast your burdens, cast these things that are weighing on you out of your being, or even internally cast it on something so powerful within you to transmute it, it's very important to do on a daily basis. Anything that starts burdening me, I can cast it out. I could feel it leave my body. And I go back into breath. When we talked about belief, I believe that as we speak things out, as we are saying, I'm going to cast the burden of this and I am going to let this go. And I give it to God, right? I can feel the relief because we weren't meant to do this alone. The third thing is I speak to other people about what I'm going through that I know is going to give me insights, maybe give me the blind spot that I can't see, or just hold space for me so that I don't feel alone in it. Because when we're in our brain, I remember someone told me, don't go into your brain alone. It's like a dark alley.
It is.
Stay out of it. Sometimes we need to bring somebody else in there with us because the way we're looking at it is very distorted. And sometimes you just need somebody to be like, listen, this is what's up. And then we have a little shift.
Yeah. And so a couple thoughts. There are sometimes we have a cocoon stage, and it's not just like the shadow. It's like these times where we really go internal. There are not really times that we can produce a whole lot. Those are times that like business sometimes slows down a little. We know like we're really unraveling something big, and they're a cocoon stage. And I think it just happens with every entrepreneur, whether you're really aware of what's happening on a psychological or spiritual level, or whether it's just happening. On the other hand, I think that sometimes we also just need to balance, like when we start doing like shadow work or this or whatever, like we have to train the mind to catch it too and go, okay, like this is my time with myself in my container. This is my time journaling. This is my time introspecting. This is my time screaming at the top of my lungs. And now I have to also feed myself something else. So that's where we cast that burden off to something bigger than ourselves, infinite intelligence, whatever you want to use. And we also start bringing in visualizing the things that we want, starting to get clear, being really positive, speaking out, adjusting our mind, right? If it's not one of those cocoon times where it's like really, okay, I'm going to be in this most of the time. And even in those times, train your brain and train yourself. Don't dive into the ocean knowing that you can't come back to the land. Dive into the ocean, come back to the land, dive into the ocean, come back to the land. Be mindful of when we get further and further from ourselves, we can feel more and more lost in the shadow. And what I mean by that is, Erica had said something with your question about trying to adjust the business to be what you think it should be or what other people, sometimes we can get off mark a little bit where we're like, wait a second. And it goes to the first point we made of what's your values? What's your care? What's your passion? Where are you in this? If we're not totally here where we are, sometimes we can get off a little bit. And so just start small, just get really clear. Oh, this is something I love to do with people. It's a group, private coaching, it's whatever. Like, I love this thing. Come back to some basics, grab onto something you have capacity and excitement to do, and start to slowly build that spark back up and that energy back up.
I love that so much. And I find it absolutely mind-blowing that you pulled out the cocoon, because I was watching her video this morning about her journey and she was talking about the cocoon. So I'm like, okay.
Not surprised me.
That's dumb. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
I didn't think you were either. We're both not surprised.
Next question, same from Justine. She said, how do I believe in something that's never worked out? I don't want to give up on my purpose, but it hasn't worked out so far and it's been years.
Yeah, that's such a good one. And it's so good
for everyone.
Yeah, because I think it's such a universal, it's like such a universal trick. If I could just count how many times somebody has said to me, Why I know it's not going to happen? Because it hasn't happened yet. That's such a collective idea. And it's like, there is zero evidence that is it true in any way. And so the first thing is you just got to catch on to that belief and go there. I know that I want to believe that this is like true, but it's not. First of all, I love Nicole's example. 44, she did this music on this album. It's amazing. There's a lot to say about this. First of all, were you ready? You're probably still evolving. You're probably still shifting. There are reasons that we didn't get to the place yet. And when we first of all start appreciating, okay, maybe I've gotten in my way. Maybe I had to learn something, and start appreciating the journey of, no doubt you have accomplished so much already. I don't even know your whole story, and I know you have done so much. You start looking at, what do I have to be proud of and grateful already? And yes, maybe it's not that X on the wall of this is my definition of what success is, but you have tons of success already under your belt, and you're still here. I would start looking at your belief systems and just get a hold of them and just start replacing it. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. In fact, replace it one step further. Like, it is now the time for this to happen. It is now happening. Like, really start adjusting the belief system and just say it and claim it. It's not a joke to say it. Like, it's not just an affirmation. I call them declarations. Okay. You're declaring something into being, and you got to start backing it. You really got to start backing it and believing it. There's an awesome author, and she said, fear is faith in evil. It was a simple line, and it hit me so hard. And I'm giving an example just to show, like, when we really pivot in a belief, the way it was phrased for me, it's not going to work for everybody. It was just like, wait a second. I don't want to invest in evil or badness in my life. I don't want to put my energy, I don't want to put my biggest commodity, my energy into that. No, thank you. It was the right language for me. So when fear comes up, I just go, okay, but this isn't where I'm putting my investment. I refuse to put my investment here. And so it's like just catching yourself and finding that right declaration where you're like, no, I don't want to keep investing in this idea through my subconscious or my direct consciousness that, like, I am going to not have this happen just because it hasn't happened. I'm sorry, I got to go so hard here, and hopefully it resonates, but catch where these belief systems are our safety nets. We hide behind the things that are going to keep us from going all the way. We hide behind those comfortable belief systems, even if we don't realize it. It's that, like, safe place.
Yes.
And even if we don't like that familiar place, it's safe.
Yes.
Even if that familiar place sucks, it's safe. You know what is not familiar is actually getting to that point where you're in that place with your business. So go back and listen again to some of the things we said, because there's some things that talk to that point of living it, feeling it. What does it feel like for your business? Because if you go in right now and I say, what does it feel like for your business to be everything you want right now? If you're really radically honest with yourself, you're going to say, Dove, it feels fucking weird because I don't know what that feels like, because that's not familiar. Because wait a second, I deserve that, or I can be there, or like what Nicole said, that whole other me where that shit wasn't happening anymore now dies. Whoa. So this is where we really start looking at it head on and becoming the person that is ready for that business to succeed. That's the focus. Feel it, own it, embody it, declare it, and what needs to happen for you to be the person that's ready for that. But be really proud of where you are already, even if it doesn't, again, measure up to what you're wanting to see on paper.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is what are we measuring success against? And why is it all or nothing? What if you're already succeeding and you just don't see it yet? What if the fire has already started kindling and you just don't see it yet, and it's there and you have to feed it?
Yes.
And gratitude is that magnetism.
Yes.
It's not a joke. It's a law. It's a universal law. We work within universal law a lot. Very successful people, whether they realize they work in universal law or not, and most do, even people that you wouldn't think have consciousness of that, work within the law of what's going on. It is a law that the more you are grateful, the more you recognize every cent, every step, every act of courage, every act of movement, every act of consistency. That is what will grow in your life and your space. Move the focus, the shift ever so slightly. We are consciousness mentors. What the heck does that mean? It literally is about moving from one consciousness to another. Every time you pivot to a different consciousness, your reality changes. It is that serious. You live in a new world when your consciousness changes. So really focus on that gratitude and what you've already done. And yes, success, I really think it's a feeling of what we want to achieve.
I'm with you.
We have
I think it's
access
a
to that.
feeling.
Yeah.
What are we measuring? Are we measuring dollars? Are we measuring views? What are we counting as success? What if self-expression is success?
It is. It's what your soul,
It
what your
definitely
soul
is.
wants to do.
That's what we're here for. If success is being your true and highest self, that's the only thing we're measuring. We're not measuring views and likes and dollars and this and that if we're talking about YouTube or any of these things.
Absolutely.
And I want to say it doesn't have to look like you think it has to look. Everybody just take that in for a second. You don't have to have the most followers on Instagram in order to have a really thriving business and making an impact. We could get off topic on this for a while about like just modern culture and how we're expected. But I know that your soul wants to be here and wants to express, and that's what we want to do. But the side effect of getting expressed is that you will be able, because once you start playing in that divine self and that infinite intelligence, our birthright is abundance because it creates freedom and movement in this world.
Yes.
And when you are really aligned, freedom and movement in this world is what you get to tap into as well. So it's like you can also pivot. Okay, maybe it's not about looking at raising that up. It's about coming back into the center space, changing that, and then watching what happens.
And sometimes 1 degree of change is all you need.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's so small. If I look at what shifted for us before coming into 2023, where things just went haywire, off the wall, it was like 1 degree of change. And then everything unfolds. So sometimes you don't know what that is.
It's true.
It is very true, because if you think about it, it's like that 1 degree is small within self, but as it expands out, it fans out and creates this incredibly big shift. So we think like, I've got to change every single thing in my life. I've got to do all these things, but it could just be 1 point, and then it will multiply, because as you're increasing the focus in one direction, I think that's really what all of you, I would say as a takeaway, really start to think about. A lot of energy is moving now. I'm getting the hiccups. So really think that's what happens when people are like they're shifting. Really start to think about, okay, where is my primary focus of energy? So if you're not even aware of what your mind is doing, that's your first step. And then really thinking about every time you think about something or you're focusing on something, think about it as your investment into a stock or your investment into an account. Do you like the account that you're investing in? Is that giving you a good return?
Yeah.
And if it's not, just go ahead and start investing. Don't blame, shame yourself. Think, oh my God, I'm going to manifest all sorts of terrible shit because I'm investing in this terrible account. Don't do that, because what you did is you just invested more in that account. Just start investing over here. Just each step, just go, oh, I put $1 in there. Hold on a second. I'm just going to put 5 in here. Just start investing into a different bucket.
Awesome. So this is from Chelsea. So she said, holy moly, thank you for sharing that. It was insanely powerful. I was beyond passionate about my work for the first 2 years. And then suddenly in year 3, I hit a brick wall of burnout. How do I reconnect with my why and get that passion and excitement back? And how do I even find my why?
Yeah, that's so good. First things first, if we have burnout, we can't access that. So the immediate thing is work on the burnout. And that means work smarter. If you need to work, not everybody can just take a hiatus. So if you need to work smarter, think about the things that you still have the most delight for and the most passion for, and just focus on those in a limited way. So maybe it's not making a million videos or running groups or whatever. Maybe it's like having a couple steady, awesome clients that you love to serve and gives you more space for yourself, right? However that applies to your particular business. The burnout, we cannot reassess whether we like what we're doing or need to adjust what we're doing or any of those things when we're in burnout. Because again, it's like the most extreme version of a bad no sleep night. And then our perspective of everything shifts. So it's hard to say reassess the business when you're in those places. I would say, how can you keep the business going, sustaining you and doing what you need to do while tending to the burnout? Once that's a little bit better, you're going to have a different feeling and perspective towards the business. Because when your nervous system is freaking out, you'll go into freeze or fight, with your business. Doing things for your business can start becoming a threat to your nervous system. And then you'll have weird experiences like, why am I so angry when I have to make this video? And it's, you're not angry, you're in freeze. And you're feeling like you got to defend yourself from that situation. When people go into freeze nervous system, they think, oh my God, I'm just not passionate about anything anymore. And it's like, no, you're really burnt. And now things are becoming a threat and you're shutting down. A lot of people will start putting things off a lot and they'll not want to face anything. So as a side note, I don't believe laziness exists. That's not actually a thing. That's not real. Nobody is lazy. Our body's trying to tell us something. We either don't have the capacity to face something, we're having a nervous system response, we're putting things off because we can't, and we're so, again, suppressed and unkind to ourselves that it's, oh, I'm being lazy, or I'm just not facing it, I'm procrastinating. Procrastination, though, is a deeper indication of something. It's like your nervous system going, I can't. So that's one thing. And then just in general, which I think is less specific to you, as I said, we do need to reassess our business every so often, because if you're growing, then you may be like, oh, I've got to adjust this. This isn't utilizing my best skills. So when we're not letting ourselves grow in the space, we can get bored or feel dispassionate because we're not utilizing the best of ourselves. If we're not utilizing the best of ourselves, we're not in that full self-expression, we start like getting bored and we less motivated, and it starts to feel like a chore.
You put yourself into it, all of your mind, all of your heart, all of your body. And it is a real burnout, like in every possible way. And I think that's true for so many entrepreneurs. But when you give everything your all the time, how can you expect to continue on if you're not refueling?
Yeah.
You can't have a plane flying around the world a million times without refueling. It just doesn't work that way. And I love to talk about the fact that hustle can only get us so far, but I feel like that's where we're at. Because if we're trying to go through hustle or grow through hustle, there's a point where your body shuts down and says, no, I cannot. I am done.
No, it's true.
The only way to restore is to actually restore. But the key is to find ways to do that all the time and not just wait until you completely be on burnout.
100%.
I agree.
Yeah, I was going to say building into your business. And I think this also goes to being at proper value with what you do. I think a lot of people undervalue themselves. So they work more clients, more situations. It's not the case for everybody, but you have to make that assessment. Like, am I really owning my worth and my skill set in this? Am I pricing accordingly? Are my boundaries according? And yes, maybe you need to take a periodic month off. You work for 3 months, you take a month off. We feel like, oh my God, I could never do that. And no, it's not going to feel organic initially, but you are going to prevent yourself from getting into these places. And I think all of us have had it to be able to talk about it. Sometimes things come up and the burnout happens and it's real. And then you have to go into real faith. You have to come back to that place and you have to go, I'm not going to shame myself and abuse myself. I've got to think smarter here. A lot of you guys learned business from your parents' generation, totally different. Or you look at what other people do and you compare their outside to your inside reality of your business. And you think, I have to be doing it that way. There is no have to be doing it anyway. There is only the way that works for you and your business. And that does take a lot of courage. But being an entrepreneur takes a lot of courage.
It does. And don't wait until a few months from now to take the rest if you need it today. That's all I have to say. Consider every day a small piece. Every day is a small piece of your year. And if you need to recharge every day, you should be looking at that every day, because you can't just wake up and perform from burnout. You can't do it. So it's just a sign that something is missing in our daily routine. Do we have a morning routine? Do we have an evening routine? Do we have a way to wind up and wind down? So you need to build space into your day every day, and not just when it's not season. I know Nicole and Dove, and I know how much they value self-care and how much they value their bodies and taking care of themselves and their minds and their spirits and everything. And I think that's something that we all need to take from. If you look at them, they are glowing. Why? Because they pour back into themselves. I know they do. They take care of their health.
I was just going to say, start small. If you guys are overwhelmed by that, don't be like, I've got to do everything and all of a sudden, just start. Just do one little thing and let it grow.
Exactly. So we have a question from Stella. She said that she's been working on her mindset, and one thing that keeps showing up is concentrating on the lack of things, lack of business, lack of time, and such. I keep questioning myself and the path I'm in.
Yes. I was just going to say focus, shifting the focus.
So I'm going to ask you a question and I want you to take it away from here. And I want you to think about what it's actually giving you to focus on the lack. It's giving you something, girl. Like, I don't know if you're afraid to succeed. I don't know if you're afraid to fail, but when we are constantly looking like, I'm in lack, it almost allows for us to not totally pivot, move. Maybe you don't believe in yourself, but I think you should journal and see what this is actually giving you, because these things, we don't just do these things. Like, we can get addicted to worry and lack, like it gives us something, but sometimes we're doing it because we don't really believe in ourselves. And once you start to see what's going on there, I love what Dove said about focusing. It's like first focusing on what you are doing, seeing it, feeling it, experiencing it, grateful for that. And then you're going to have to expand your mind. You're going to have to start envisioning what it would look like if you had it all.
Yeah.
And you have to be in it. I want to take what Dove and I are doing, and I want it on mainstream, like definitely. And I'm being prepared for that. But I used to envision myself walking to Trader Joe's with cameras, like videotaping me just walking in because we were going to pick out some good food and it was going to be on that episode. And I'm constantly imagining that when I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't sleep, I see myself up on stage. I'm like on fire. I'm imagining this because here's the thing about your brain. It doesn't know the difference between it really happening and you envisioning it.
Or what is even really happening.
Right. It doesn't. Like, they've done studies, the brain fires the same way. And so if you can at least get yourself to slightly start to feel, and what would that feel like? What would that look like? How happy would you be? What would the emotions you would have? You start to create it.
Yeah. When Nicole said, what is it giving you? The word I heard was control, because when we feel like, if I can really just look at all the things that are not working and I can worry about it, it does provide a sense of control when we feel out of control. And it's how you're creating safety, how you're utilizing that sense of desire and control. Look for every single thing that is not lack. Look for everything that you have, from an emotional to a physical level. If you get $1, celebrate it, jump up and down.
Yes.
I'm not joking. It's not facetious. Don't make it a joke. Be like in full. Look at all of these signs of success and let them multiply. You're reprogramming your brain.
Yes.
Brain reprogramming takes some work. If you think about it, for however long you've been doing something, you've been training a muscle to do it a certain way.
Yep.
And then we go, I tried this for 5 minutes and it didn't work. And it's like, you have to literally reprogram your brain. Like, we're talking about like changing the neuroplasticity in your brain. It's great. The brain is amazing because we can move it from one. It's so malleable, and consciousness is malleable, but the physical brain is malleable. But we have to put in the work. So start training your brain. If I said, hey, you said, how do I get abs? I say, here's this ab workout. It's the same thing you're going to do. You're going to bring consciousness to what you're getting from the behavior. You're going to see what it's costing you to have the behavior. You make a decision to practice something else, and you just start rewiring. You just rewire.
And you have to trust the result even when you can't see it yet.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's faith, girl. Yes.
It's happening. Whether you see it or not, you have to channel that.
Absolutely.
And what it is that you want. And it's just like what Dove is saying about working out. You don't see an immediate result, but you do it because you know it's healthy for you. And you do it because it's better for you than not doing it. If we're focusing on getting our comfort zone all wrapped up in lack instead of abundance, it's because it's comfortable for us, because we're used to it. That's our society is focusing on that and worry.
Yep. You got to, my God, like, you are all extraordinary. You want to do something extraordinary. I use the word extraordinary. It really is extraordinary. The world wants to be super limited. And if you look at people that have accomplished something, first of all, nobody understood what they were doing.
Yep.
Everybody criticized them. Everybody in their environment couldn't get on board for the most part. They did not give up.
Yes.
Number one thing, you cannot find me a successful person, any version of success, however we want to measure it, that gave up on what it is. Yes, faith is, I say faith is a choice. I think it's a decision. We have to decide to move into that space, to make that our belief system instead of making worry our source of higher self. And we come into that choice and it starts to move stuff. It's a beautiful thing because when you start really getting used to it, you can feel it. There are times where I go, oh, ooh, there's some good here. It just, we haven't seen it in the pipeline yet, but like, oh, it's here. Yep. And I start living in that energy fully and completely, even before I see the sale roll in or before that, I know it's there because you start getting used to knowing when that energy comes. So just because you're not like seeing it in your hand, it doesn't mean it's there. So no, like your clients are there, your opportunities are there. People are seeing your worth. They're appreciating your art. They're appreciating your skill.
And I loved how you said extraordinary, because what I'm hearing through some of the comments in the thread is, in a way, yes or no, all or nothing, successful or not, all of these things. And I'm hearing in my mind perfectionism in a way, because just because something hasn't happened to the level that you want it to happen doesn't mean it's not happening. So I think that if we shift our focus from whatever version of success or perfectionism that we have to instead focusing on creating the extraordinary, living our best lives, being present in the moment, being our fullest expression of ourselves. These are things that are more healthy to focus on than yes or no, up or down, left or right. I'm done or I'm not. I've made it or I haven't. That is so yes or no. Like there's gray in all of this. Like maybe we're on the way and maybe we just haven't gotten there yet. Maybe it's happening already and it's just starting.
It's not linear. It's messy.
Yeah.
It's not like this one, you go up and you go down and there are like lulls and there are highs and you're like, what am I doing? And you go deep and you're in a cocoon and then you're on stage and then you've got a great event client. And then you're like, it's a journey. Like the whole thing, again, like if you just go back to like, how can I just give myself the best expression of me? And how can I know myself the best? How can I have the deepest connections? How can I have the deepest kindness to myself? How can I feel the most fulfilled? I was in an event once and somebody said to me, like, would you be good if you died tomorrow? And in that moment, I said, no. And it wasn't because of any external measure of anything. I said, I haven't expressed all of me yet. And it's like at core, like that's what we really want. We want to experience our full potential.
Yes.
So it's not, you don't just want a bunch of clients, you want to experience your full potential and you want to give that full potential to the world. And that's what we really want. And you get to do that. You can do that just with your kindness or your insight or your connection to the person bagging your groceries. There's so much of this that's accessible to you right now. And all of you have succeeded in so many ways in your life, or you wouldn't be here in this moment watching this. Take inventory of that. Take inventory of your courage, take inventory of your consistency, take inventory of your abundance, what all these things, find it and really just go like, thank you.
I completely agree with Dove when she said, go back and watch this again. And this is what I love so much about videos. You can go back and watch and hear again in a new way, because for some of us, this is new exploration that has never been done before. Maybe people have not been comfortable looking into their shadows. Maybe they have not felt comfortable examining or looking at or taking inventory ever up until this point.
Yes.
100%. And for those of you guys, like, get support if you really don't know how to navigate that stuff. Don't set yourself up. Don't feel you're weak. The strength is really in being properly supported through your processes. And I know all of us who have done work, and shadow work is an ongoing, that's not a one and done. It's the rest of your life. The better you are engaging with it, the more you master your own self. And so it's not just a thing that we do once at a retreat, but let yourself be supported, be kind to yourself.
Thank you so much for sharing everything you both shared. We are so grateful. And just everything in so many different ways. Everybody is saying, thank you so much. That makes so much sense. They're so grateful. Thank you all so much. And thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, team. Thank you for supporting us. And thank you all for being here. And thank yourselves. Thank yourselves for being here.
Justine just said, I knew this was going to be a great session. Dove and Nicole never disappoint ever. There's 1,000 gems they deliver with everything they do. Thank you so much. Love you both. We all love you.
Oh, I love you guys.
Love you guys.